After a brutal week of smog and terrible air quality, Beijing residents are getting a little breather. Rain and cold wind finally cleaned the air over the city. Environmental officials there have lifted the second highest pollution warning on Wednesday after a long week. Air quality on Thursday and Friday was good, according to the Beijing Environmental Protection Center. Balancing fast-paced economic development with increasing pollution has been a challenge for China. Anand Naidoo spoke with Jennifer Turner, director of the China Environment Forum at the Wilson Center, about the progress of China's pollution reforms.
I mean, when you look at last year, the first big airpocalypse, now we have airpocalypses in China, that the government responded quite quickly in instituting the monitoring in a lot of cities around China. And then in September, they issued the Pollution Action Plan. Highly unusual in the middle of a 5-year plan to have this action plan that put forward some fairly aggressive measures, talking about coal consumption caps, coal-free zones, trying to move a lot of the coal out of the cities. And most notably is that officials are no longer going to be judged simply for installing air pollution control equipment as in the past, but they have to show results. And in fact, I think just this past week, as the smog has gone crazy again in northern China, that the Ministry of Environmental Protection has sent a dozen or so teams around China to make sure that local officials are really starting to take action on the targets they've been given to reduce particulate matter 2.5.
Right. Of course, it's making a lot of news right now, the pollution in China. I mean, what is the most serious impact of high levels of pollution? We've seen, for instance, tourism drop.
Tourism is dropping. I mean, I would first have to say I think the health impact on the citizens is probably the #1 impact. But when you're looking at the business impact of tourism, I mean, we've seen Beijing tourism was on the uprise from when they got the Olympics going on up, and last year they had about a 10% drop in tourists, and that's pretty significant. And even in the first quarter of this year, I think there was like a 14% drop just in Beijing. And so the rates of tourism dropping in Beijing are even higher for the rest of the country. So there's no hard numbers on which companies maybe are not investing in China, but I'm hearing a lot more anecdotal evidence where companies are saying, I don't know if we want to invest there, or we have to pay our employees more to stay in China. And so the costs are rising.
Yeah, we did have reports out of China saying that in many instances, expats who live and work in China were actually leaving at this time to escape the pollution. But I just want to get back to something that you said earlier, the impact on the health of people living in these cities where there's high levels of pollution. What kind of ailments are we seeing?
Well, I mean, there's definitely big spikes in asthma and just respiratory distress in general. I mean, hospitals get a lot more visits from people. And you're also seeing that Chinese researchers, health researchers, are starting to publish data, numbers that are rather scary. I mean, 1.2 million people dying early every year from respiratory illnesses in China. And then admitting, the government too, last year admitting that, there are cancer villages in China. And so really the pollution health link has really made it up on the radar in China. I mean, from the government standpoint, there's been a lot of talk over the years, but so they're seeing this as a public health crisis. And I believe that with the public health and the threats to the economy, that it is being clearly seen by the Chinese government as something that could undermine the economy, which is why they're poised to start taking more serious action.
Right, there have been factories that have closed down because of the levels of pollution. I mean, what kind of a drag is that going to have on the economy?
It's going to have a huge drag. And when you look at the numbers, I mean, compared to last year, Beijing, they shut down 200 factories over the course of the whole year. And already this year, we're just in February, 147 companies have had shutdowns. And it's not good for their production. I mean, ultimately, what they really need to do is enforce the air pollution control laws consistently throughout the year. I mean, these stopgap measures, it's going to, in the long run, really hurts their economy a lot more. But it's really still kind of tough for China to enforce all these rules effectively.
Do you think there would be a time when China could see itself come under foreign pressure to clear up the air?
I don't think they necessarily need the foreign pressure. I mean, the pressure is already there. Mm-hmm. But what is encouraging to me is that, I mean, for the past 30 years, we've seen a lot of not only bilateral projects working in China on clean energy, but environmental NGOs and researchers. And I've noticed in the last couple of years that, that Chinese organizations, government, are opening their arms even wider to looking at the energy system differently. I mean, the smog is really an opportunity for China to reboot their thinking on energy. Half the battle could be won if China really became even more aggressive on energy efficiency. I mean, they've made lots of progress over the past 6 years, but China, you know, it has to be the best in this.